This is the Samuel H. Bolton Show. Hi, folks. You're listening to the Samuel H. Bolton Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have with me Luke Stokes. We're going to talk about Bitcoin a little bit. Luke, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks and let them know who you are and your background, that kind of thing, what you do these days.
Excellent. Yeah, it's great to be here. My name is Luke Stokes. I run a company called FoxyCart. It's an e-commerce shopping cart system that I developed with a business partner back in 2007. And we just basically allow developers and merchants to be able to add e-commerce to their existing websites. And I got interested in Bitcoin about a year ago, and it just totally blew me away. It was actually February of 2013. As I started digging into it, it just fascinated me because I've been involved in the payments space and involved in technology. It involves cryptology and all these different things, and networks, decentralized systems, things that really interest me. And the more I researched it, and at the time I'd also been learning about the central banking systems of the world and thinking, wow, this is an amazing, incredible invention that has never existed before and can actually do some incredible things. So that's where the last year of my life has been consumed. And coming in actually April of last year, I convinced my business partner to actually support Bitcoin on our platform, on the FoxyCart platform, via BitPay as a payment gateway. So we not only accept Bitcoin as payment for our services, but we provide Bitcoin as a payment option for all the different stores that want to do e-commerce with FoxyCart.
Oh, wow. So were you one of the first online companies, businesses to accept Bitcoin?
I don't know if I'd say one of the first, but definitely an early adopter. That was something that was really fun. I spent a lot of time in the bitcointalk.org forums, and I kind of said, hey, I would love to be able to do this, but I need to know that there's going to be some people interested in it before we invest, time and money into implementing this. And the community was great. They promoted it quite a bit. We actually were one of the first advertisers on the Let's Talk Bitcoin podcast with Adam and Andreas and Stephanie. And
Oh,
that was
wow.
really cool to be a part of. Yeah, that was actually even before it was called Let's Talk Bitcoin. They were actually going to do a daily podcast, which after I think like 3 or 4 days, they were like, "We have not slept at all. This is
Yeah,
insane." But yeah, we did an ad there early on, which is really cool, and so we got some exposure to
I know.
the community early on. But yeah, since then we've had there's a lot of different larger organizations like Zynga and Overstock.com and other companies that have jumped on board as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember when you first told me about Bitcoin about a year ago, and it was like probably February of last year, and you were telling me it was going to change the world. And I think at that time it was trading at like what, $12 a coin?
Yeah, I think when I got involved, it was like around. I think my first buy was about $20. It was
Oh, wow.
I bought. I convinced my wife to let me throw away and burn in $50 of money that we would both believe we would never see again,
Wow.
and we bought 2.5 Bitcoins for $50 basically. It was kind of neat, and I watched it all that whole year do all its crazy stuff, go up to 260 and then crash down to 50. And I tried to play the day trading game and lost more money than I made for sure. And I realized that the only thing I can do somewhat well is know when the good buying opportunities are. I have no clue when to sell. I remember I even sold some around 180, thinking, oh well, it was actually after the government took over the Silk Road. They had all this Bitcoin that they confiscated, and I thought, oh, for sure, they're just going to dump these on the market and crash the price. And I had no clue about how that whole process works as far as the offline auctions that they do and things like that. So
Right,
I
right.
sold, and of course, right, not too long after that, it went up to as high as 1,200. So that was a
Yeah.
great financial decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Since then, I was just like, you know what, I believe in this long term. I'm too emotionally connected because I want to end the day with more Bitcoin as a trader, and so I just realized I'm not good at that. I'll stick to programming.
That sounds good. Yeah, so it's not so much about day trading, it's more about the long-term game, right? Believing in it as
Definitely.
go ahead.
Yeah, the technology itself is what interests me. The currency is fascinating as well because of what it can do for freedom-loving, liberty-seeking people. And also the unbanked. There's an incredible opportunity for people, 6 billion people that don't have banking services via
Right.
Bitcoin to have that. But really, it's the technology. When I understand as a developer, a programmer myself, when I understand what the actual technology is solving, how it's creating a network of decentralized public ledger, consensus system that
Hmm.
uses math for security. Not, you don't have to trust anyone. It's just a fascinating thing.
So can you give us like a quick, well, it doesn't have to be that quick, but like a layman's explanation of what Bitcoin is? Maybe give us an idea of when and how it started.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Actually, I wrote a blog post recently about like how to understand Bitcoin in 30
Yeah,
minutes because
I'll
it
link to
really
that in the
takes
show
about.
notes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. It kind of takes about that much time, and 20 minutes of that is actually reading the original paper. And so where it started is there's a pseudonym, which we kind of all agree is not his real name. Either an individual or a group of people by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto came up with this idea for a digital currency and also a network for transmitting that currency. And he put it in a white paper. They call it the Bitcoin paper. You can literally go to bitcoin.org/Bitcoin PDF, and it's there. And it's about 8 pages, 8 or 9 pages. And it just explains this whole process. And if you go into the deep kind of what it's doing, what's incredible about it is there's been ideas for digital currency in the past, but they all rely on a centralization. Like just like when you write a check and you send it, to your friend, he's got to go take it to his bank, and there's a central check clearinghouse that has to agree that my account has that money, and it's going to debit it from my account, credit it to your account. Everyone agrees, and that money's not going to get double spent. Well, when you have a digital currency, you always need that centralization up until this point. So this paper outlines via a proof of this algorithm and also this validation process where kind of like if I hand you a physical apple, it's very, very clear ownership change took place. I had it once, now you have it, and it's very clear. The digital thing, if I give you a digital apple, how do you know I didn't give someone else like a copy of it 5 minutes before? How do you know you have the real thing? And what's fascinating about the protocol, the technology, is it creates a system where through decentralized nodes, all these individuals that are part of the network, they can all get consensus and agree upon ownership. It's basically like an accounting ledger where every transaction is kept track of,
Hmm.
but it's distributed and decentralized. So every single member of the network has a copy of the ledger. And every time a new group of transactions get confirmed and added to the ledger, everyone agrees.
I
So the
see.
money can only be spent once. You can never have a double spend on the currency. And that was really the breakthrough. There's been a lot of attempts at digital currencies in the past, but they all required some kind of centralization in order to prevent a double spend of a digital idea.
Gotcha. Okay, so the thing that made it different was this kind of this open and public ledger that everyone had access to, and everybody could kind of keep each other accountable.
And
Okay.
and the process too, another big part of it was like I'm sure you know, our currency that we use today, fiat currency, it can be inflated at the whim of any Federal Reserve or government agency. They can print as much as they want. Well, the protocol was designed to only have 21 million Bitcoins ever created.
Uh-huh.
There will never be more than that. And
That's,
currently, I think there's around 12 million right now.
I gotcha. So
And
that protects against inflation and things like that.
and also just manipulation too. It's because it's a known curve. Everyone knows exactly how the currency is created, and I'll get into that in just a second. So there's no kind of shady business going on. There's no kind of everything's public. Everything's out there in the open. And each single Bitcoin can be divided into over 100 million divisions. They're called satoshis. So even if I wanted to buy like a stick of gum and the price of a Bitcoin was say $10,000, it wouldn't be a problem because you can have tiny, tiny subdivisions of a Bitcoin. You can do microtransactions for fractions of a penny for free anywhere in the world to
Oh
anyone.
wow.
It's really fascinating. So the idea of just keeping it completely open and completely decentralized is just super powerful. And the way that they control how currency is added to the network and added to the system, as I mentioned, that blockchain, that's what that's called, the public ledger. That public ledger, new transactions get added to that as a block. And the way it works, all these different nodes, they're called miners, are on the network and they're running through this very complicated algorithm, taking the entire blockchain that is already, everyone agrees has already happened, and then the new transactions, which are unconfirmed. They run it through this process and they actually have these machines that are just doing this over and over and over again. And they're trying to come up with a very specific answer to basically a math program, problem. And it's very complicated. It's very difficult to do. And the protocol is designed in such a way that somewhere in the world, somebody about every 10 minutes is going to solve the problem. And they're going to have the correct answer that the protocol accepts for adding a new block of transactions as verified transaction on the blockchain. And as a reward for that, they get the block reward, which is currently 25 Bitcoins. It used to be 50 Bitcoins. Every
Wow.
4 years, it halves So you can see how it just halves and halves and halves every 4 years. So I think it's the year 2140 is when the last Bitcoins will actually be distributed through a block reward. And on top of just the reward, there's also transaction fees. So if you want to speed up your transaction being sent to someone else, you can add a little transaction fee to it, and that goes to the miners as well.
Gotcha.
But that process now is so difficult because there's so many millions and millions of people working on this problem, the transaction distributed all over the world, that you have to join a pool of miners, and you don't get the whole blockchain reward yourself. You get rewarded via a mining pool kind of percentage of how much effort you contributed to finding that next block. And so it's a pretty incredible process. The mining process itself is definitely the most complicated aspect of Bitcoin and the hardest one to grasp. It's taken me a long time to kind of figure it out. But as you dive into a little bit how it works, it's really kind of thinking about it in terms of money spent to secure the PayPal network. It's a similar way. The money spent on mining machines and people doing mining is a way to secure the blockchain network and to secure the new transactions so that everyone can agree on which transactions have taken place.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I can see that Bitcoin has a lot of potential in that it is very secure and encrypted, at least from what I can understand. But it is like you said, difficult to comprehend, especially when you don't have a background in software engineering and currency and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I implore anyone who's listening to do your own education and research on this topic as well after you listen to this. But let's go on. There is some concern I've seen in the conspiracy community and in the liberty community that this is really just a big facade for the New World Order or whoever to roll out a one world digital currency. It's been their dream for decades, and this is it, and we're all just dupes, and we don't realize it. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I've definitely done some soul searching there too. I've looked into that, and it's one of those things where in the early beginnings of the internet was this free thing that was started by some government funded organizations, but really was this idea of we're going to make information available for free for everyone, and that I think was true to an extent. And now we're kind of looking at it later going, oh, wow, it's also like a pretty powerful tool for people to spy on us. So there
Yeah.
may be some aspects of that that's true with Bitcoin. Like I said, it's public. Every single transaction is visible to everyone on the network, but it's from one address, one string of random numbers, to another address, another string of random numbers. So they're not identities directly tied to these addresses, but through different analysis techniques, there are ways to kind of assume what's going on. I mean, if you know enough about metadata analysis, you can kind of imply some pretty incredible things. So there is some concern there. Me personally, the reason I'm not as concerned is I feel that if there is a system like that, it's going to be a system that they want to control.
Hmm.
And that's what's fascinating about Bitcoin. Just like any peer-to-peer network, if you looked at like Napster or the Tor network or any of this, they're very difficult to control. Tor network might be a bad example because it's got some weaknesses if you own about 10% of the network. But from my understanding of the way the Bitcoin protocol is designed, you'd have to have more than 50% of the network in order to influence it negatively. There's actually a thing called the Byzantine generals problem. It's a problem in computer science that was very difficult to solve prior to Bitcoin. And that's one of the things it solved, where you've got all these actors in the network that you can't trust. But if you can trust 51% of them, then you can trust the whole process. It's pretty fascinating. And another aspect of Bitcoin that I think is really important is that it's open source technology. That is something that a developer like myself who deals with open source technologies all the time really appreciates. Other people may not really understand how valuable that is. But much of the internet, for example, runs on Apache, which is a web server that's open source. There's a lot of open source technology that we use in our daily lives, and it's very, very secure and robust and effective because anyone anywhere in the world has the ability to look at the source code with a fine-tooth comb, and every time there's been a bug or security vulnerability or any concern, it's been noticed and patched very, very quickly. Whereas closed source software is software that one company, one centralized organization controls, and no one can look in there and say, hey, what's up with this little line of code that feeds data to the NSA? We don't really like that line of code. That's a problem. Well, you won't know that that's happening. But with Bitcoin, everything is there. The protocol is completely open. All the different implementations of the protocol, the different wallet software, most of them are open source as well. And so you can actually kind of look in there and say, okay, unless the actual cryptography itself has been compromised, we're pretty secure there. But even then, which is kind of nice, let's say there was a problem with one of the multiple methods of cryptography that are used, well, you can actually fork the blockchain, create a new basically version of the protocol, and move forward. Because of the open source
Wow.
nature of the technology, you get enough people in the network to agree to that, and you can move forward. So it's
Gotcha.
pretty
Okay.
incredible.
That yeah, certainly incredible. A lot of it is very over my head, I will admit, but I'm sure this information is extremely useful for many folks, and I'm learning more and more as I go. So hopefully, I can understand half of what you're saying in a couple months. But it is
Well,
extremely
definitely,
fascinating.
definitely stop me. I'd say
No, no,
definitely
no, no.
stop me
It's
if I
not a
say something
criticism.
that's too complicated. Because I know, but I need to work on simplifying it. Because I think it's easy when you've been involved in something. Like I built my first website in 1996. It's
Yeah.
very easy to just not realize some of the things, how complicated they are when you've been exposed to them for 10, 20 years, whatever it is. So if I say something complicated, let me know and say, can you say that again simpler? And I'll
No,
do my
I
best.
I think a good summary is Bitcoin's strength is the fact that it's open source and many all the people who are using Bitcoin can sort of have a say in how it's controlled, and it's not all controlled behind closed doors in a centralized way like the current currency systems, right? So people who are concerned about
Excellent.
the
Yeah.
New World Order coming in or whoever these centralized power structures coming in and using Bitcoin, it's actually there's less of a chance of them doing that with Bitcoin than with the current paper currency systems we use. Would you say that that's a good
Oh,
summary?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And to be clear, I do think they will copy Bitcoin in the future. Many people talk about Bitcoin being the very first, and there are hundreds and hundreds of other what they call altcoins,
Yeah.
which are kind of versions of the Bitcoin concept that have been spun off with slightly modified properties. So I do think in the future governments will not be able to stop this. It's not a technology that can be uninvented. So I think in the future, their governments will probably try to release their own coins and their own, digital cryptocurrency type concepts, and it'll just be a matter of whether they are able to crack down on this one or not. But I
Right.
think
Right.
this one is one that can't be controlled due to the nature of peer-to-peer networks. That it gives me a lot of hope for it. I mean, there's basically some concepts that you have to. The more you understand, the better you understand Bitcoin. One is peer-to-peer networks, one is open source technology, and one is cryptography.
Okay.
Yeah, the more you understand of those three, the more confidence you can have in the system.
Well, I've got my eye. I think the true Illuminati cryptocurrency is Dogecoin, personally. Uh, I mean, because it slides in there with the cute little dog, and everybody buys it, and then they've got you. That's what I think. But that's just wild conjecture, so nobody take that to the bank. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the big scandal controversy that's been happening the last week with the Mount Gox exchange. I know that's not the hottest topic, or well, it is the hottest topic, but the nicest topic to talk about. Mount Gox, correct me if I'm wrong, was founded as Magic the Gathering online exchange. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It's from what I understand, they purchased the website with that in mind. Never actually launched as an exchange for those cards, but that was the original intent. And it's one of those things where it's the first exchange I used last year. It's the first one I got involved with. But the more I started hearing from the community about how that organization is run, and the times that I saw, like when it went from 260 all the way down to 50, a big part of that was major issues with the Mt. Gox exchange. At the time, they were doing about 80% of the transaction volume, and their system was just not capable. And
Yeah.
their tech support was not helpful, and many people were making claims that they were incompetent for what they were doing, the responsibilities they had to the community. And so there have been many, many months of allegations and frustrations with that company. The term, oh, we were goxed, you'll hear that often, where basically Mt. Gox made a mistake and everyone is losing value in their Bitcoin because of a problem with their system. And as time got on and things got even more and more shady, at one point the government even shut down their interaction with the Dwala, like Dwala canceled their interaction with Mt. Gox. The government shut down the U.S. subsidiary they had for transmitting money from the U.S. to Mt. Gox, and that was because they didn't actually file the proper paperwork for being a money transmitter. So they were breaking the law in a sense, and they had millions of dollars on Dwala and millions of dollars in that bank account, all of it confiscated by the government. And it was just one of those things. Once that happened, I definitely was out, and I was telling everybody, don't use that exchange. They're
Yeah.
not competent enough to follow the rules. They're going to get shut down. And it was just unfortunate to see how long it took and how many people were still unfortunately using it as an exchange by the time it
Yeah.
shut down.
Well, lesson learned. I mean, it's probably going to be a good thing in the long run for the Bitcoin community. They can learn from the mistakes Mt. Gox made and kind of build a stronger system and a stronger community. And a lesson about
Yes, I
the
mean, as
centralization of control as well. you know.
Yeah, exactly. I've been tweeting a lot about how whenever you take a decentralized network and start to centralize aspects of it, it's like a cancer. I mean, it's just going to get it's going to get eaten alive. I mean, the decentralized systems do not want to be centralized, and with this in particular, as of the time we're recording this, it's still very unclear where the 800,000 or so Bitcoin are. There's about 100,000 that supposedly they owned, and the rest were actual customer coins, plus a bunch of they just. It's going to be a very interesting time to see what happens and what actually comes out of this. Some people are saying it was an inside job. Some people are saying it was a hack that happened back in 2011 and they're just now
Oh wow.
discovering. Some people think they've been hiding it the whole time and using really creative fractional reserve processes to kind of stay afloat because they only need a tiny percentage of their daily Bitcoin deposits in order to function as a company. So there's all kinds of allegations going on right now. I can send you some links to kind of the latest, so you can put those in the show notes.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's fascinating, and it's one of those things that, like you said, people are learning from. And actually, just here in Nashville, we had the Nashville Bitcoin meetup just last week, and I spoke on paper wallets, which is a concept where you take your Bitcoin, create a brand new address, and you take that private key and you print it out on a piece of paper and literally put it in a safe,
Now, is that
and you
also
can
known
send your
as
Bitcoin.
cold storage?
Exactly.
Same
Cold
thing?
storage,
Okay.
offline wallets, anything that's not connected to the internet or to any digital device or computer that could be hacked is part of that process. So I spoke on that, and John, who's kind of the co-organizer of the group, he spoke on never storing your money on an exchange. And the timing of that was just, perfect because right after that is when Mt. Gox shut down, and
Yeah,
it's kind of a big
prescient.
exclamation point on what we were saying. But it is one of those things that's gonna I think give pause to a lot of people as far as putting money on an exchange, even to purchase Bitcoin, and especially for those who store their money there in order to do day trading. It's a major concern. When you centralize your money there, if you don't actually possess the private key yourself, you don't own the coin. Someone else does,
Yeah.
and you're trusting them to use it, in your best interest.
It's a shame that so many people still decided to use them. I heard folks say that months and months before, like you said, Mt. Gox failed, there were other analysts and Bitcoin advocates just warning folks left and right all over the place. And of course, the media is
Yeah,
latching
and
onto it and trying to make it into this
oh
big
yeah,
thing and saying that Bitcoin has failed, and it's
yeah.
totally
I want
nuts.
to I want to give a I want to give a shout out actually to a reporter we have in town, Jamie Mickey. She's at the Tennessean, and she interviewed me about this as well. And I just told her what my thoughts on it, saying, yeah, we kind of all knew, and this is a separate thing from the Bitcoin network. There's exchanges, which are kind of the outside of the network, where people exchange with the rest of the world as far as fiat currency. But the network itself is completely secure. And she did a great job doing a write up on that in the Tennessean. And it's just there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The media is all over this. And the funny thing, and I mentioned that in the article, I've heard Bitcoin is dead reported on numerous times. I mean, in the
Right.
past year, it's almost hilarious. Whenever somebody says, "Oh, Bitcoin is dead" or "Bitcoin's crashing," and friends and relatives saying, "Oh, so are you out of this Bitcoin thing now? I heard it's crashed. I heard it got hacked. I heard this, that, and the other." And what's really interesting about this time in particular, my friends aren't saying that. They're actually saying, "Hey, with the price down, should I buy? Can I buy? Hey, where can I go
Right.
buy?" And so it's
Catching
just really
on, isn't it?
like they're seeing through the smoke screen, going, "No, no, no, no. You guys have been saying this as the mass media for years, and those have been paying attention and been seeing it month after month after month, saying, oh, okay, Bitcoin, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's this, that, and the other. It's not going to be here to last." And now they're going, you know what? I don't believe you anymore.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it seems to me that Bitcoin is one of those rare, innovative technologies that has really the potential to change the world, and I'm sure you would agree with that. And I would say that that's its true value, from what I can see, is its potential, not necessarily it's what it's worth in dollars right now or anything like that, but the potential it has to impact how society runs all over the planet. And
Absolutely. I've got a YouTube video I put together for a presentation I did for Barcamp Nashville, which is just like why I think Bitcoin could be actually more disruptive than the internet. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't say that because, Bitcoin uses the internet." Well, the internet uses electricity and it uses, transistors, and it's like everything builds on the thing before it. But I do think because it has, and I don't want to get too much into the political side of things, but really, governments have a monopoly on force and currency control. I mean, that's what they do. They create currencies for their own citizens, and this is the first time, really, in history, other than pure barter, which is completely impractical, where individuals can store and control their own value. I work all day to gain value for my family and myself. And most people, they don't understand what money is. They don't actually question, well, what is money and what does it mean? And they don't understand the trust they're putting into that government currency that is manipulated and controlled. And history shows that often it's done not in our own best interests. So it is an incredibly disruptive technology from that standpoint, from the geopolitical standpoint of individuals being able to have a say on how their store of value is used and controlled, and also just telling them, getting them to ask the question of what money is. Because once you start
Right.
asking the question of what money is, it's fascinating. So I'll send you a link to that as well if you want to put that in the show notes. I think it's a fun backdrop on that to see historically how different people have viewed money, and the different quotes I have in there are pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds great. So, what is this going to do for the third world economies if this truly catches on? Like you think about a country like Kenya, where they skipped over the landline telephones that we all have here, and they went straight to cell phones because they work better, right? So that's sort of happening over there as well. They're skipping over the sort of buildup that we had with paper currency and central banking, and they're going right to something like, or they could go right to something like Bitcoin. What?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so excited about that. Actually, if you listen to one of the best speakers and advocates for Bitcoin out there right now is Andreas Antonopoulos, and he's part of the Let's Talk Bitcoin podcast along with Adam Levine. And just a second,
If you want to,
my
do you want
daughter's
to pause
video.
for a
Just a
second,
second.
or
All right, just a second.
yeah, that's fine.
All right, sorry about that.
That's good. I know that
Reset
our
real quick.
interview is roughly the length of a kids program, so that's a good
Yeah, really. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I'm like, oh yeah, 27 minutes.
yeah, not bad.
Okay, so I was saying, Andreas Antonopoulos and Adam Levine, part of the Let's Talk Bitcoin, the way they talk about it is the other 6.5 billion. They talk about the unbanked, those who, as you said, aren't part of the existing infrastructures of centralized finances that we have today. They're completely unbanked. They have no way to have access to any kind of microloan system or any kind of way to do any of the financial instruments that we use today because they don't have
Right.
access to banking. This would provide them through the cell phone network, like you said, and in smartphones, access to, again, control their own store of value. And we're seeing this already with systems like M-Pesa and other different payment networks that are out there. But those are still centralized, still controlled, huge fees. I mean, 20, 30% fees, it's insane.
Yeah.
Another big aspect for that market is the remittance market. There's a lot of people that are in one nation working very hard to make money, and then they send that money back to their friends, relatives, and family that are in a more impoverished nation. And again, those fees sometimes are outrageous, and the people who need money the most are being charged the most to get that value sent to them. So that would be really another thing for, if you look at Western Union or MoneyGram or some of these other companies, they're going to be hugely disrupted, I think, to the extent that Blockbuster Video was when Netflix came around.
Right.
When there's a
Great
need
comparison.
that's not being served efficiently, it's going to be really difficult to maintain their control over that industry when
Right.
Bitcoin comes around.
So really, this is the market in action, right? This is empowering people to take control of their own finances in the face of huge governments and huge corporations as well, like Western Union. I saw.
Yes, I mean it's fascinating too when you think about, we were talking about the Mount Gox situation. Some of the people that lost the most money, even I watched an interview recently. I forgot if it was Eric or Roger, but one of the major Bitcoin advocates, he basically said, "Yeah, I took a risk. I knew Mount Gox wasn't the best place to have my money, and I lost my money."
Yeah.
And they're celebrating it as the free market in action, as opposed to Mount Gox was too big to fail, and we
Right.
all need to keep it afloat. They said no, they were not providing a good service. They were not. They may have even broken the law, depending on how things shake out. We needed them to go away and make room for more advanced, more professional actors in the system.
Right.
So it was very refreshing to hear some of these people who had significant losses. They weren't screaming for regulation. They weren't asking the government to come and bail them out. They were actually saying, no, we understood what we were doing. We understood the risks. We took those risks and we lost, and we're going to be better for it. Do not, regulation is not the answer here. And I thought that was really amazing.
Yeah, that is quite incredible. So, if let's say Bitcoin becomes more and more prevalent, more and more common, people start using it in general. Like, let's assume there's not some kind of crazy government crackdown. What does that look like for someone's day-to-day life? How does that change the way that they use money? They're not going to the bank
Well, I think
anymore. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. It's funny. You just start using Bitcoin for a little while, and every single time you have to interact with your bank, you're like, what the this is archaic. Like
Right, right.
it just feels so weird. I'm signing my name on a check and I'm putting it in an envelope and I'm waiting 3 to 5 days. And it anytime I transfer money from one bank account to another, anytime we have a distributed team all over the world. So when we pay them via FoxyCart and we have to wait for those transactions to clear. And it's just insane as far as having to go through the banking system's rules and regulations. It feels normal now because it's what we've already seen. But again, I've used Bitcoin to buy a TV online. I used it recently to stay at a hotel.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've used it enough to say like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But another big part of it too is the credit card companies. They take 2 to 3% on every single transaction. Now that's a cost to the merchant. They're passing that right along to you. That
Sure.
that is a cost that
So
they're
it'll bring
not gonna.
prices down, yeah.
It could bring prices down. It could create a lot of opportunities, a lot of interesting ways of just thinking about things differently as far as businesses go. You can have a business, for example, let's say their operating margins are 3%. Well, they start using Bitcoin, they just doubled their profit, doubled their profit.
Yeah.
That's incredible to me to think that that's possible. And so I think from a day-to-day life, like I just today actually I went to lunch and I forgot my wallet and I was having lunch with John and I was like, oh, he's like, oh, I'll get you, I'll pay for it. And I was like, well, hey, I got my phone. I can actually send you some, I can send you Bitcoin right now. But he's a Bitcoin enthusiast also, and he's like, no, I understand. No, the price is down. I know I don't want to make you do that. So he was gracious enough to let me keep my Bitcoin. But it's one of those things that is quite interesting as far as in the day-to-day interactions. It's so simple. You go to a restaurant, you split the check, you literally, a couple QR codes are on the table and everyone pays exactly the amount they want to pay. It's pretty seamless and fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it would be very difficult to stop the progress of Bitcoin. It seems like this is something that's truly going to revolutionize things, at least to me in the research I've done the last couple days. People can poo-poo it all they want, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, it can't be uninvented. It's one of those things that you can't uninvent the internet. You can't uninvent peer-to-peer
Right.
technology. Can't uninvent cryptography. And you mentioned, if the governments have a major crackdown, Russia, for example, it's illegal in Russia. China has cracked down on it pretty hard as well. I think Taiwan just recently said it's
Vietnam,
illegal
I
there as
saw.
well.
Yeah.
So yeah, or Vietnam, yeah. So it's very, very interesting to see where it's going to go. And it's one of those things that there are enough people that believe in it that it could potentially be a power struggle, a showdown in terms of those who want freedom and liberty and those who want to control. And I haven't made a personal decision yet where I would go if that came to a head,
Hmm.
but it is one that I'd be thinking seriously about because it kind of brings everything to the forefront to say, okay, what right does this organization or that government have to control my personal store of value to that extent?
Right. It's an incredible time to be alive, isn't it? What was the name of the fellow with the Greek name who you mentioned? Adrian Antonopoulos, is that right?
Andreas Antonopoulos.
Andreas
He's
Antonopoulos.
spoken. Yeah, he's spoken on the Kaiser Report, the Joe Rogan Experience. He was actually just did an interview with Stefan
Yeah,
Monolith
I
that I
watched
watched the
that
other
one.
day, which was great. And
He,
he's just a great advocate for the community. I mean, he really he's got a huge background in cryptography and security and encryption, and he's just a tireless promoter for the currency, and also he really knows what he's talking about from a technical perspective.
Yeah, he mentioned in that interview that something like 40%, or maybe Stefan mentioned it, something like 40% of economic activity in the world takes place off the books in the black market, and I'm sure a lot of that is crime, but I'm sure a lot of it is also just people trying to bypass government regulations, people who can't afford to pay fees and things like that. So it seems to me that while Bitcoin has received accusations of being something that is for the privileged class, but it's actually the other way around. It
Yeah, well, that's definitely the most exciting thing about it, I think, as far as potential. Like you look in Venezuela, and they're losing 20% in hyperinflation every year. They're just trying to survive, and something like Bitcoin would allow them to do that without the capital controls that are going on. Italy just had a thing recently where 20% of a transaction into Italy would be immediately taken off the top, and you'd have to prove that you're not a money transmitter in order to get that money.
oh
I
wow.
I mean, just incredible things that governments are doing that eventually people are going to say, no, I'm working too hard for this money. I'm trying to provide for my family. There is no justifiable reason why you should be stealing this from me. And when it when it comes down to how much money is used for illegal activities, one at the New York when the New York hearings they had for bit licensing in New York City, one of the people there said, it was about 0.1% of all transactions were used in Silk Road for illegal activity. I mean, it was just a tiny fraction of the
Jeez.
blockchain network.
And
And
Silk Road,
when you
just
look
for
at
the listeners, was a website
yes,
where you could purchase illegal narcotics primarily using Bitcoin and other things. Is that correct?
yes, and actually, I was just listening to an article about that, a podcast from Let's Talk Bitcoin. Is they actually had a lot of products, not just illegal products, but that was
Okay.
obviously the main draw.
And it was named after
And
the Silk Road, right?
yes, yeah, and it was the guy who ran that went by the pseudonym of Dread Pirate Roberts, and it was very interesting, very colored. When that went down, it was a big deal, and everyone claimed, "Oh, see, Bitcoin's going to crash completely because people are only using it for illegal activities," and the price went up after that because it really wasn't that big of the network. And what's interesting is when you look at how much of U.S. dollars, the actual physical U.S. dollars, are used for illegal drug trafficking and things.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's quite shocking. Another
And
aspect of it that I think is fascinating is the latest number I heard was 7% of the money in the system that we use is actually physical for U.S. dollar transactions. The rest of that is digital. It's done
oh,
via wire transfer, bank account to bank account. Only 7% is actually physical. So I
wow.
laugh when people talk about this quote unquote digital currency that is Bitcoin. It's actually more physical than the currencies we use because most of it is stored in offline cold wallets and
Yeah.
physical paper wallets and things like that. So it's really really hilarious.
Yeah, and they mentioned the potential for crime with Bitcoin, and they leave out the fact that the owner of the U.S. dollar is one of the biggest purveyors of crime in the world today, right?
Shh, we're not supposed to talk about that. We're gonna shh,
I apologize.
no, it's true though. It's true.
Yeah. So, well, that's quite amazing. All that stuff, the implications. I'm blown away by it. I've enjoyed reading your blog posts and learning from you and from other folks as well. For people who are interested and want to maybe acquire some Bitcoin, can you recommend some places they can go?
Yeah, and I do this carefully because I've used a bunch of exchanges that no longer exist now. One of them, being Mt. Gox and Bitfloor and others. But I so far recently, and you can give the date of this, of course, when it publishes. But
Yeah.
I've been using Coinbase, and I've been very happy with them. They seem to be run by a very professional group of organizations, a group of investors, and you connect that directly to your bank account, which some people are a little bit concerned about. As after looking into the company and using them myself, I don't have concerns with that, and so I've gone ahead and most of my purchasing and selling of Bitcoin lately has been through Coinbase.
Coinbase.
And again,
Okay.
they're good, reputable companies. Some of the exchanges, there are many others are very shady. You go to the website and you're like, whoa, I'm gonna send money to this,
You get like
So
ads for
I would
Russian wives and things like that on the sidebar. That
yeah,
kind of
exactly. So it's one of those, buyer beware is never more true than when it comes to Bitcoin. And the advice I give everybody is don't put any money in it you're not willing to lose because it is an experiment. Even the people who are in the Bitcoin Foundation, the main core developers, they still consider this an experiment. However, it's one that I think is worth knowing about. It's kind of
yeah.
like if someone was to come by and tell you about the internet in 1992 and say, hey, this is going to be big. And not only that, you have the opportunity to invest in the infrastructure. That's kind of what you're doing when you're buying Bitcoin. You're investing in the potential of this infrastructure, this network, and the currency that is used on the network into the future.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. And am I mistaken in saying some people will buy and sell Bitcoin just with people in their local communities? How does that work?
Oh, definitely. There's a website localbitcoins.com, and you can using your phone with your wallet software, you can just go up and just the other day when we had a little local meetup at a restaurant around town, I've got a picture of it that I tweeted out. Guys were doing right there, handing over cash and sending the Bitcoin directly. It's a
Wow.
peer-to-peer system, so it's just there was no centralized authority at all in that transaction. It literally went from one person to the other person through the blockchain that's completely decentralized around the world, and it's fascinating to see. Once you see it, you're like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah. Can you store Bitcoin on your own hard drive rather than in an
Absolutely, yeah.
exchanger? Okay.
Yep, definitely. And that's how you should store it, either on your own hard drive, but even better than that, on a paper wallet. But yeah,
All
you
right,
can
like
you
you're
can
mentioning.
download the Bitcoin QT, which is the client software. You can run that on your Linux box or your PC or your Mac, and you can that is how you create addresses. You can send Bitcoin to those addresses, and they will literally be the private key, which is what gives you access to that store of value, will be stored on your computer. And if that hard drive fails and you don't have a backup that's encrypted, you'll lose it like real cash. It's digital money. It'll be gone.
Wow. Okay, well, amazing stuff, Luke. Thank you so much for being on my inaugural edition of the Samuel H. Bolton Show. It was wonderful. Do you have any parting comments you'd like to make?
Oh man, I'm just super privileged to be a part of the show, and I'm super excited about it. I think we'll look back at this and have a good laugh as we
Yeah,
see your popularity grow and your user base grow. I think Sam, I think you just got some amazing content coming forward, and I'm really excited as a listener to be a part of it as well. But I'd love to come back to you in the future to kind of share how things are going, because I do think this is going to be a story that's going to play out for many years to come.
yeah,
And again, it's one of
definitely.
those things. If you have a question, if anybody has a question, I'd be happy to help out. And as we're doing here in Nashville, starting the Nashville Bitcoin meetup, there are other cities around the country and the world that are doing some pretty large meetups. So I would say go to meetup.com or go to some of these other meetup groups and find some people in your area. Go on Facebook, even there's some groups on Facebook, and start asking some questions, or go into IRC and go into the Bitcoin channel there. And there's plenty of people out there, plenty of stuff you can learn online about this. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks again, Luke, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Talk to you later, man.
All right, take care.
The Samuel H. Bolton Show is recorded in Nashville, Tennessee. Show-related links can be found at thesamuelhboltonshow.com. To comment, ask questions, or find out more information about the Samuel H. Bolton Show, please visit thesamuelhboltonshow.com. If you would like to be a guest, you can contact me there as well. Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget the Donate Bitcoins button at the top of the page. This show is made possible by innovative, liberty-minded, freedom-loving warriors for truth like yourselves. Please consider throwing a couple bones our way. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Thank you for listening.